So if you love strawberries, oh my God, I eat strawberries every day. Great. Have some raspberries and blueberries and like try to kind of widen your horizons a little bit. So because each food is going to feed the microbiome slightly differently. We want to be very careful when and how we're working out, exercising. Exercise is very important, but that week before, maybe you don't do the like long runs or the intense workouts. Just chill.
Just lying in Shavasana.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think I was listening to a podcast with Mel Robbins where so much research and investment goes into, that first part of our lives and like fertility and all of that kind of thing. And nothing is it's growing now, which is encouraging, but there's so much to discover.
The biggest one for most people, I think, in this day and age would just like slow down, and I'm guilty of this too. Even talking, I can get like, but just slowing down and breathe.
Welcome to Nourished by Spinneys, where we promise to inspire you to eat well and live well. I'm Tiffany Eslick.
And I'm Devina Devecha. We're continuing our chats with leading players in the food community, from farmers to foodies, as well as health and well-being experts. It's all about engaging conversations and fresh ideas. So we've been on the go a bit. We've been to restaurants on site. We've gone to Oman, gone to a gym here in Dubai, and now we're traveling again. Where are we going?
Yes, so I thought for today we would bring a slice of Bali to Dubai.
Okay.
We're chatting to Kimberly Rose Kneier, the Director of Wellness at Shambhala Estate, just outside Ubud in Bali. She's also a licensed acupuncturist and a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner, or TCM. So Kim and team were recently in Dubai because Shambhala Estate is celebrating its 20th anniversary.
And I also read about your visit to the estate, and we will put a link in the show notes for anyone who wants to read it who hasn't already.
Yeah, I was so lucky to visit last year, I think October, November time. It was a great trip to kind of reset before the end of the year. I feel like I did all my New Year's resolutions there.
Yeah, okay.
What I loved about it is there isn't like one size fits all approach there.
Nice.
I really felt genuinely cared for from the very beginning of having a meeting with Kimberly to everyone whom I encountered. Like they knew what I was there for, what areas needed to be worked on. And it's, of course, you're not going to move mountains in a week. I think I was there for 7 nights, but it really instilled ideas for change.
Yeah.
I tried new therapies that I haven't done before, and just taking the time out. I love to go to wellness retreats and make time for myself like this. And I think it's so important because just going away for a week, being by yourself in nature, and just giving yourself that breathing space and being open to new things can really work wonders. So I made a lot of promises to myself then, and I've really kept them. Kim was actually the first person that I met. So her or her colleague, Prasanth, Dr. Prasanth, who's an Ayurvedic doctor. So you either meet with him or her because she does traditional Chinese medicine.
Yeah.
They will do that for the first kind of diagnostic conversation. So I remember, sitting down and she was like, stick out your tongue. That was the first thing that she said.
People are coming for different reasons. Some for de-stress, some for detox, weight loss, some just to get an introduction to wellness and what this is all about. So we're, depending on what the concerns are, we're going to kind of piece together their program to give them, their best goals. I always, as you know, from personal experience, outline the 5 elements in Chinese medicine, which tends to kind of connect a lot of dots for people. And then, of course, and maybe we'll talk about it later, I have an acronym for the R.E.A.L diet that I find to keep things more simple is the best approach. I think sometimes wellness can get a little bit daunting, especially when, you go to someone and they're like, oh, you have to change this, and it turns into this overwhelm. So that's kind of what I try to do is keep it simple. Obviously, while we have our guests there on the property, we can kind of guide them and then give them tools that they can take home with them to continue their journey.
Yeah, I liked that approach that you had, the simplicity. I remember we spoke for hours, and we'll definitely get onto the R.E.A.L diet.
Yeah.
What I found interesting was, yes, you have the Chinese background, but I felt that you listened to everything. And so from personal experience, I really liked that, I had lower back pain. And so you really looked at that and decided, how can we get around that, in the week that I stayed there. But then I did do some Ayurvedic treatments as well. And I liked that balance. I think it's very interesting as well, like when you do all those TCM diagnostic tests, so I remember sticking out my tongue and you saying, okay, there's a purplish hue and you have teeth marks and that shows a spleen chi deficiency.
Sure.
But then that sort of lined up with like other things that I've learned from Ayurvedic medicine in the past. And so it was nice to be able to have access to both you and Dr. Prasanth, really,
and
really
I think that's what's really unique about the estate as well, is that we have, two professionals that are, heavily involved in their, profession. But, between Chinese and Ayurveda, they really are, because it is a holistic approach, that they really hold hands very well. Even though we might say things slightly different, they kind of mean the same thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Do people respond well to this? Like if they know nothing about, say, TCM, are you finding that they're getting more interested in it afterwards?
Yeah, sure. I get a lot of first timers, especially for acupuncture. And I think, obviously I'm passionate about the medicine. And what I like about it is that it's based on nature, and so you can explain things, wind, for example, is like the liver and stress and can, move things around. It's a bit chaotic. And when you kind of explain it and break it down like that, people can really resonate with it. And then they can, start to make the connections on their own, which I think is also important. So you're not dependent on going to somebody to like try to figure out these things, that you can kind of be self-empowered in that way and start to navigate your own kind of health and wellness.
Let's run through those elements again, just to remind me, because So you got wind.
So no, we don't have wind. So wind is the climactic influence of wood. Okay, so we'll start. I always start at the top with fire, and then so there's different cycles. So fire, if you think generates it burns down, generating the earth, which is the next element. Earth contains all of the metals and minerals, which is the next one is for metal. The next element is water, and then followed by wood. And so if you look at it in a circle, right, we have fire generates earth, generates metal. Metal cools and heats, condensing, forming water, and then water waters the trees, and you put wood on the trees, so it kind of goes around. And then, of course, you overlay the organs on top of that. There's many correspondences to each one of those elements, but that's where it all kind of comes to life. And when you sink back into the elements, is easy to kind of start to figure out what's going on in the body.
And I also love things like Qigong that we did. It was really interesting to try new things. I've been fortunate to do a few wellness retreats around the world, but there was something that just really resonated at Shambhala, and I put that down to your backgrounds, your approaches. There is something there.
And I think the property, as you know,
filled with magic.
It really is. And I always say, I feel like I sound like a used car salesman when I go, and talk about the estate, but there's something it's almost like it's tangible in the air. And sometimes it takes a couple days to feel it, but it's only a matter of time. And, you get off the plane and sometimes the traffic can be bad. So even if people are a little like razzled by the time they arrive, it doesn't take long until there's that like, that exhale. And then people kind of look around, they're like, wow, this place is just magical.
It is. It's like its own little universe. And it's a very spiritual area because of the spring that's sacred.
Yeah. So as you know, the estate is on 9 hectares of property, and we only have 30 room keys. So the space that's available, even when we're fully booked, you still can kind of be like, is there anybody else here? And then there is a sacred spring that comes directly out of the kind of mountain that we're sitting on. And we have a natural waterfall coming from the spring that feeds these natural spring pools that are just divine. As you know, going down to Kadara, it's like stepping like into this, just place of bliss and peace. And people will go down there for, hours at a time.
Yeah. And totally worth the climb up as well at the end.
Totally. Yes.
After the first time, I was like, I'm struggling, but this is worth it.
Yeah, it's definitely easier going down.
Yeah.
But
it's like a pilgrimage going all the way down there.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, let's go into your R.E.A.L diet, because I know you're super passionate about this, and I found it fascinating when we were talking. So let's break down your acronym and how you came up with this.
Okay, and just, for the record, this is not like a Como thing. This is something that I just developed to help explain to my clients and doing the consultation. So we have many diets in the world. You can list them. There's dozens. And I think what that does is it kind of people think they need to fit into like one of these boxes. Oh, I have to be vegan or vegetarian or paleo or keto or carnivore now. The R.E.A.L diet was my attempt to simplify things, not to create another kind of box to fit in. So the R stands for resemble something found in nature. So I generally encourage people to lean towards a plant-based diet, but by no means do you have to be vegan or vegetarian. Animals are found in nature, right? But not generally full of hormones and nitrates and all of this stuff that will end up in the more kind of commercially produced meats. So resemble something found in nature. E is eliminates problematic and highly processed foods. So the problematic foods, as you hopefully remember, are the kind of major inflammatory contributors, which is gluten, sugar, dairy, corn, soy, eggs. Everybody freaks out about the eggs. I know, what? Eggs? I thought they were like the most nutritious protein. And I'm not saying eggs are not nutritious. They very much are. They're wonderful food if you don't have a sensitivity to them. The problem with them is that they're very high up on the sensitivity list. I can't tell you how many people that I've seen that have tried maybe the first kind of all the things on the list, and then, but I eat eggs every day. And, well, that might be part of it. That might be part of the problem.
That explains
inflamed
nature.
Yeah, exactly. So when we eliminate those and it doesn't necessarily say you can't have any of those foods again, but you probably want to limit them at least for a period of time. And then you can kind of test which one you might be causing more of your problems. So anything from bloating, headaches, aches and pains, lethargy, any of these can be, your body just kind of operating in this low-grade inflammatory response, right? The A is achieves optimal nutrition. So many people will realize if you ask them, what do you generally eat for breakfast, lunch, dinner? We tend to gravitate towards the same things, right? We know what we like and we kind of go back for more. I'm guilty of this too. So what we want to do to achieve optimal nutrition is obviously make sure you're getting the right micro and macronutrients, and start to introduce and widen your spectrum of food, especially of fruits and vegetables that you're eating, right? This kind of idea of eating from the rainbow. So if you love strawberries, oh my God, I eat strawberries every day. Great. Have some raspberries and blueberries and try to kind of widen your horizons a little bit. So because each food is going to feed the microbiome slightly differently. So of course we know now that the microbiome, which is all the critters and viruses and parasites and fungus that lives in your gut, but actually lives on your skin as well. We know that the more diversified this microbiome is, the higher your immunity, your mental cognition, your emotional balance, right? Some people, your emotions is actually, for the most part, coming from your gut and how your bugs are getting along down there. And if they're not getting along, then you might get easily angry or frustrated or feel a little bit depressed, right? So we want to make sure that we're feeding our microbiome properly and getting that wide diversification so we have all of those added benefits. And then the L, when I first came up with the R.E.A.L diet, it stood for lots of leafy greens, which I now kind of just throw in with the A, achieves optimal nutrition. And the L is now longer times without eating, which is when I introduce the kind of proponents of intermittent fasting, getting your eating window a little bit shorter. And it's not to say you have to do this every day. The research, at least that I have read, is, even doing it 5 days a week, great. Once you get used to shortening your window, so most people will start with a 16-8, whereby you're kind of fasting for 16 hours and your eating window, let's say, is between 11 a.m. and 7 p.m. That generally works well for most people. From there, again, depending and, obviously making sure that the body is able to enter into longer states of fasting, then I start to introduce and encourage people to do longer fasts, maybe 24, 36, 48 hours, which I know seems daunting maybe to the listeners are like, what? You want me to go 48 hours without eating? That's not where you start. You start to slowly press into these longer states of fasting. And there's reasons for that.
I remember you saying your body starts eating itself at 17 hours.
Yes, exactly.
So,
wow, good memory, Tiff.
That stuck with me.
Yeah. So this is a process called autophagy or autophagy. Auto is self, phagy means eat. And yeah, so when you kind of run out of nutrients, your body starts to look towards itself to feed. So it starts to eat itself, autophagy, eat self. But it's eating the parts of yourself that really should be eaten. And because many of us have been told to eat 3 meals a day plus snacks, many of us are going to bed having a midnight snack, waking up first thing in the morning, eating, right? So we're not, if anything, we have it the other way around, is we're only fasting while we sleep for the 8 hours, if we're lucky, and we're eating for 16. So your body is not able to access these deeper detoxification and kind of healing pathways that happen through eliminating food.
It really, the way you explain it, I told you that when I saw you 7 months ago, it really resonated with me because, you read about intermittent fasting and I've had friends that have tried it, and I don't know, maybe it was the right place at the right time, but I just thought it was fascinating.
Yeah.
And, I kept it up for a long time after the trip. And I mean, it's bad that I haven't continued it. But I think if you also listen to your body, I don't naturally like to eat breakfast. And there's something there then, so don't force yourself to do that. And so you can make these easy changes into intermittent. If you just listen to your body, follow a cycle, it's not difficult to eat between certain periods of time. And then, as you say, take this gentle approach and start lengthening the time. And these sort of 48-hour fasts, you're not saying do it all the time. No. You're doing a gentle reset. Try twice a year to start off with.
Exactly.
I also remember thinking the way you explained it with the menstrual cycle was really, it made sense. And so maybe we can talk about that again, just to jog my memory. What you should be eating, when you should be eating. And you also tied in working out, at different times and how it all works together.
So women have to be a lot more careful when we would do these longer fasts for, obviously we have a lot more hormonal fluctuations than men. So the easiest and the best time for, and this is work done by many doctors, but predominantly Dr. Mindy Pelz, which if anybody is interested can look into her work. So for the first 2 weeks of your cycle, which would be day 1 to day 14, it's going to be the easiest and the best time to do the longer fasts. When we hit about day 14 to 18, when we're ovulating, estrogen is rising. And so we want to kind of refrain from doing longer fasts there. And if we can, work on eating foods that are going to encourage estrogen, right? This is also a time when estrogen is high, so is testosterone. So those 4 to 5 days in the middle of your cycle are going to be the best time to do strength training. You can do strength training the whole time, but you're going to build more muscle and you can use testosterone to your advantage if you really lift those weights during that time. So no long fasts, increase the weight training. For the intermittent fasting that we spoke about, the 16-8 or the 18-6, whatever you're doing, you can do that all month long. So between ovulation and that week before your cycle, you have another little window where you could potentially do another long fast. So let's say that's between day 18 and 21 for most women. Day 21, this is very important. And that week before your cycle, you don't do any long fasts. You want to eat. For me, I don't do any fasting at all that week before. You want to eat foods that are going to encourage progesterone because the progesterone is rising. The week before your cycle, you also don't want to do any intense workouts. Why? Well, because when we... you won't die. You won't die, but you will throw off your hormonal balance big time. You might start losing your hair. You might put on more weight. So when that week before our period, the progesterone is rising, and if we are spiking cortisol levels it's fine cortisol gets a bad rap, but cortisol levels are naturally going to spike with fasting, with exercise, and it's fine when they spike and come down. The problem with it is many people are fight or flight all day, and they're just staying super high. But we don't want to, we want to really limit those cortisol spikes that week before our period because cortisol is kind of the enemy to progesterone. So I've seen a lot of women that have the fasting, and they might do it for weight loss or just general other health benefits, and they miss that very crucial part, depending on who they learn their fasting from. And they start either their cycles become very irregular, maybe they find their PMS crazy, hair loss is a very common one. So we want to be very careful when and how we're working out, exercising. Exercise is very important, but that week before, maybe you don't do the like long runs or the intense workouts. You do more like Pilates, yoga, Qigong, maybe something more like long walks in the park with the dog.
Yeah.
Just chill.
Just lying in Shavasana.
Yeah, exactly.
Just foods that boost estrogen. Can you give me some examples?
I mean, the most famous one is probably like flax seeds. So you can even add, ground or like fresh ground would be best to add to like smoothies. And then for the progesterone would be more like the pumpkins and squashes and this. There's many others, but
I remember dark chocolate featured somewhere and I was like, yes, that's when I'm allowed to have dark chocolate.
In mine, yes. No.
Yeah. and there's a huge trend towards looking at women's health for perimenopause and menopause. Are you seeing an interest from clients who are coming and are asking more questions about this? And what are you guys doing for that?
Through Chinese medicine, we have a very different lens through which we look at menopause. Generally, we're looking towards like this underlying, what we call a yin deficiency, which, and more often than not, there's like a kidney yin deficiency, right? That kind of rules reproduction. But this is a time that women should actually be having more energy. It's like an initiation into the second half of your life, right? You've raised the children, your body, you're not having a cycle every month. You should have more energy. And so many women have just bought into this like belief that like, it's like, oh my God, menopause. It's like my life is going to get derailed. And so many women's life does because, especially in the West, because the work kind of that we've been doing. We've been like the mom, the super mom, the, huge corporate, whatever, 9 to 5 or like 40+ hour work weeks. And this really consumes, a lot of chi and blood and yin. So when this time comes at the life, if we've been kind of burning those candles at both ends, we are going to have probably a lot bigger problem than somebody who has maybe not been doing those things. Yeah. So there's wonderful, wonderful herbal formulas that can help. And definitely getting on them before you start having the symptoms is huge, right? Western medicine is great for emergencies. Let's just kind of leave it at that. It really falls short at prevention and these like lifestyle kind of diseases, if you want to call them that.
Yeah.
So the sooner, we have a lot of proverbs in Chinese medicine. Like one of them that I really like is if you wait till your enemy is upon you, it's too late to build a wall. Right. So this idea of prevention, and it's a tough sell. People are like, no, I feel great. I'm good. And it's like, you feel great because your body's like working like super overtime to keep you at this level. And when that burns out, you're going to crash, which is kind of this classic menopause phenomenon that is happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot, definitely across the West, but it's moving east. Back in the day, every woman is going to stop getting her cycle, but it's not usually this like whole tornado of symptoms and events that starts to happen. So it's actually quite heartbreaking to see what happens for a lot of women. And also knowing what I know is that, oh my God, there's like, if you would have started taking this herbal formula, in your mid-30s, can really like help to nourish that yin so that transition is not even smoother, that is actually like enjoyable, and then you have more energy.
It is scary. And I think I was listening to a podcast with Mel Robbins where so much research and investment goes into that first part of our lives and like fertility and all of that kind of thing, and nothing is it's growing now into periods, which is encouraging, but there's so much to discover. One thing that I absolutely loved at Coma was the food. And I know like food is medicine is your motto there. And like what the chefs are doing, with fermenting and kombucha and again, going back to your real food, if there was meat, it was grass-fed and organic and line-caught fish. So let's chat about some of the cool things that are being done food-wise, like ingredients that are being used or what's being grown on the property or,
Yeah, so Como we're kind of well known for our really nourishing, healthy cuisine. And we, as much as we can, we're sourcing locally. And then again, wherever possible, organic, just fresh whole produce without a lot of the additives. So we don't use any vegetable oils and all of these kind of things that tend to make their way into a lot of even healthy foods, people really need to be quite careful at looking at ingredients. And I always say, I read an interesting kind of article that, if we put the humanity into like a year, we started consuming grains yesterday and vegetable oils an hour ago.
That's frightening.
At that rate, if you put it like it directly coincides when we start to see this massive rise in all of these, heart disease, diabetes, cancer rates just going up. And it's, these vegetable oils, canola, palm oil, they're in everything. And they, I guess, as a standalone, maybe aren't inherently bad, although they are very refined. But they're just straight omega-6. And our perfect ratio for omega-3 to omega-6 in our body is 1-to-1. Most people are getting 1-to-30 or 60.
Wow.
Which is insane.
Yeah.
And then this is where the inflammation goes crazy. And so we don't use any vegetable oils in Como, and we try to keep things just really nourishing and fresh and healthy. And a lot of people come and they're like, oh, this wellness menu is going to the food's not going to taste very good. And it's not true. It's like you can make things super flavorful
absolutely,
and really nourishing and still not feel like you're missing out.
I didn't at any stage feel hungry.
Yeah.
And I felt everything was so beautifully presented as well. So that helps, when you're looking at something, you can't wait to bite it. And such great flavors, like all the jamu that you guys are pulling from, Balinese traditions, so that medicinal drinks.
Yeah, we brew our own kombucha.
Yeah. I remember the chef being so excited. He had a pineapple kombucha that he wanted me to try. And so I was like, yes, I'll try that. But you don't go there feeling hungry at all. In fact, there's you eat a lot, and it's good food. And I think I lost something like 2.5 kilograms in the week of staying there with everything that we were doing, but naturally, and it stayed off, so and I wasn't there for weight loss. It was general well-being. And then also a big part of what you're doing is all the spa therapies, and you're in charge of putting the schedule together for someone when they come. What are some of the interesting, I know what some of the interesting things are. I've had the treatments, but what are signature ones that you'd like to share that people might not know about?
Our signature massage is our Como Shambala massage, which is a kind of medium pressure, which uses more kind of long strokes. Beautiful, it's super relaxing and therapeutic. Something more kind of unique to Bali might be like our Taksu massage, which combines a little bit of stretching and pressure points and some energy work. Of course, we have an array of Ayurveda treatments as well. My personal favorite is the Shirodhara. That is the warm sesame oil over the third eye. Very good for kind of balancing the pineal gland and just really kind of putting someone in a deep kind of meditative state. But we have the Abhyanga, the Pitsichil. We are doing a full refurbishment in the spa right now for our 20-year anniversary. So we are we have a hyperbaric oxygen.
Oh, cool. I've been reading about that.
Yes.
So now with that, sorry to totally interrupt, but I'm super excited about this. So would someone come and then do that oxygen chamber for like a week? Because you kind of need multiple sessions in it, right?
Yeah, you can for sure. So it is included in some of our wellness pass if we want to discuss about some of those. And, obviously as an a la carte, it will be available just for guests that are at the resort. But the hyperbaric, it's great for obviously delivering more oxygen to the body, but for decreasing the healing time. So for any kind of skin issues, for any broken bones, muscle recovery from workouts or big events, a lot of intense athletes are using it for faster recovery time. We're getting an ice bath and cold plunge, and then upgrading obviously all the facilities. We have infrared sauna, steam room, and then we've kind of refurbished our vitality pool with the hydrotherapy as well.
Oh wow! Yeah. I'm gonna have to come back.
You have to come back.
Can I just spend the whole time in the chamber?
Yes.
I wanted to ask you, where you'd said the world of wellness is so there's a lot that's going on, and to keep things simple, what is one grounding principle that maybe you live your life by, or a motto that you like to share with people, if you can pick one? I'm sure that's quite difficult, but
probably the biggest one for most people, I think, in this day and age would just like slow down, and I'm guilty of this too. Even talking, I can get like, but just slowing down and breathe, like conscious, deep breathing is crucial. And not overthink things, right? We can like, when you come to a place or you go see like a practitioner or something, and I remember the first time I went and saw my shifu that I ended up doing my master's degree under, and she was like feeling my pulse and like, so deficient. Like I left there feeling, I actually felt great when I went in, and when I went out, I was like, oh my God, like am I dying? Like, and I think we need to be careful and self-compassion, and just taking one, just if you have a list of 10 things to do for your health, pick 3 max and then work on those for a while and then add one more. Don't think you have to do everything all at once, because it's like when you go to the gym and you've got a lot of work to go. You go for a week and you're like, I still look the same. It's like, yeah, because it takes time, and we live in a day and age where we want those quick results. Yeah. And the body doesn't really work like that. But it does work. I mean, it works phenomenally when you give it the space and the time to do those things.
Super important. Time is, it is important. And we're so sucked in by instant gratification.
And so our wellness paths that we have at Shambhala Estate are, we call them a path because it's a journey to wellness, and wellness begins within, right? And it's not a destination that you arrive at one day and tick the box, like, okay, I'm well.
Yeah.
Like on to the next thing. It's like, no, you need to keep walking that path, and you need to just keep doing. And, with all the research that's coming out, we're finding out new things, more and more every day. But getting back to the basics of clean water, clean air, nature, sleep.
Yeah.
At the right time.
Yeah. For the right amount of time. Yeah. But it is. And it's, speaking from experience, it having come there, it sparked a lot of interest. I think I was there for 7 nights, and it was just the beginning. But what I can see the changes, whether it has made me get my personal trainer or made me look at things a different way. I mean, I think I remember you saying, you need more green in your life because there was something to do that. And I remember you saying, just look and soak up the greenery to get the color. And, so I still do that,
great.
But I mean, that's a little thing, but I think it does spark an interest, and if you really are keen to want to change by coming there. So, because there's a real genuine approach.
And sometimes people need that like jump off.
Yeah.
So it's easy to come to these wellness retreats and be well there. And it's like, well, what happens when you get home?
Yeah.
So we do, offer packages where you can sign up for like additional kind of check-ins as well.
Okay.
And then, again, just I try to give our guests 1 to 3 things that they can just focus on and not try to do everything all at once.
Yeah. I have one last question, which is, what nourishes your soul?
Oh, for me, it's definitely nature. Yeah, just any kind of nature, getting out, getting my feet on the earth, walking the beach, walking on the grass at Shambhala Estate, jumping in fresh water. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Kim. I feel 10 times calmer than I did when I first came in. I had a very busy morning, and now I feel very, very calm again. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely.